And that includes pharmaceuticals, which will face a 100% tariff unless the company is actively building a plant in the U.S. So what does this all mean for prescription drug prices? To bring us some clarity, joining us now is Fred Roeder with the Consumer Choice Center. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Fred. Good to see you.
Hi, good morning.
So let's jump right to this. When it comes to those prescription drugs, which drugs are exempt, first and foremost, from this policy?
There are still some unclarities about this tariff. Most likely, so-called generics, unbranded older drugs will be exempt from it, which is rather good news for U.S. patients because a vast majority of generics in the U.S. are being imported. But still, prescription drugs that are still on brand and patent protected, which are especially the breakthrough drugs that manage to save lives, extend our lives, they most likely will be part of this 100% tariff. And that tariff, a tariff on drugs, is just a tax on your health. So patients should be worried about this.
And for those who are listening to this and they are concerned about the results of this, what do you suggest that they do if, in fact, this will affect them?
Probably first just breathe and not panic right now. This is all still a bit in the making. At the same time, the Trump administration is working on drug price controls, so-called most favored nation principle, where they want to import European price policies to the U.S. With that, they also might risk importing drug shortages, late access to life-saving treatments from Europe, because these are all problems European patients are struggling with. So instead of trying to increase drug prices through tariffs, and on the other hand, trying to tackle it with European-style price controls, it might be better to look where to reduce prices within the U.S. And there are layers and layers of middlemen in the U.S. health system, such as pharmacy benefit managers, and it might actually make sense to look there and see how we can bring drugs quicker, safe, but also cheaper to U.S. patients without jeopardizing future innovation and shortages for patients.
You know, speaking of the most favored nation executive order that we saw back in May, we know that deadline was September 29th. It has passed. What happens next when it comes to that and really the future of drug pricing models?
Yeah, so the risk is to import not just cheaper drug prices from Europe, but also patients having suddenly to wait a year longer for life-saving treatment. And that's often time patients don't have when you get diagnosed with a cancer. So it's a risk that the U.S., which always has been the country with like the fastest access to new breakthrough therapies, will actually fall back. And one more midterm result could actually be that European countries and Canada have to raise their drug prices. So some pharmaceutical companies already started doing this in the UK to say, okay, if we can make less money in the US, we have to claw this back elsewhere. But then the question is, do these health systems, which are single-payer government systems, actually have the money for this? Or will we actually have a race to the bottom and patient access around the world, and potentially see less breakthrough innovations in the future because there's just less money in the system, which is concerning for everyone who has a loved one or a friend who suffers from the disease we cannot cure yet, and there are many of them.
Gosh, certainly there can be some serious ramifications to this. Fred Roeder, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a couple moments of your time. We really appreciate it this morning.